Imete kaneno watin I Wanlo TV abimete kajolo in I yupwa mawaloni ngech kingene jui awaje iwuni yup eni uberi yup mawaberi kikerme kilu tutiana wa megi wa wogi wa magite ka teach mabe tutwale ken ping waberi kikerme with story gi me wonyi kira teach kere me wonyi kit magudon kere so tin ya yumada ne atie ki la mera ma entie la dit I kit me poko chik entie vice president me Uganda Law Society abelego no ye kon wa lok le mo pian le wa tien do ye pete akotwal tie ka be percentage mara wa de ka beach kenyu so pete akotwal so alego no ye kon wa lok kon kile mo pian angebe ni le mo wa be one can ping be wa kwan so le mo wa tie ma bed to so abelego ni ye kon wa team interview any ki le mo Dana, I've been telling our viewers that my guest for today, the law language is not so strong, so I know that the viewers have accepted. So this interview will be done in the language of law. Welcome to Wanlo TV.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, Dana, you're making very big strides in everything that you're doing. We are seeing you, we see you all over the place. We're so proud of you. We want to know who Diana is, Diana Angwech. The name is so intriguing. We want to get to know you. Who is Diana? Where does she come from? Who are her parents? Where did she grow up from? So tell us those nitty-gritty details about you before we go on with the show.
So my name is Diana Angwech. My father is very tough on the pronunciation. He once had me pronounce it in front of a camera, and the cameraman had him whispering behind how my pronunciation needs a little bit more accent in it as I pronounce it. So my name is Diana Angwech. I am many things. I am a lawyer by training. I am a leader in many aspects of my life. I lead in the church aspect. I lead in the legal aspect. I lead in the corporate aspect. So that has a lot to do with companies. But I also lead at home in many ways. I do lead at home, and I have traversed that in many areas and places. My passions are many in life, but I like to keep them down to three.
Oh, we'll talk about your passions.
Yeah, because I think that defines me. My parents, I am the third born of 5 children, and people always think I'm the firstborn. Never they hate me. It has something to do with my character.
Yes.
But I am the third born, first girl. My sister comes last. I grew up with 3 boys, and we were 2 girls. My parents by the grace of God, are still alive. My father is called Okecho Chuo Geresom, and my mother is Florence Naushao.
Okay, all right.
And my father hails from Toro District, Kisoko, and my mother from Bududa. It was Zimbabwe, but now it's Bududa. Hails from Bududa. We grew up in Kampala on Moanda Road, and my parents raised us. Then it was an extended family, and over the years, I think we grew aware of the fact that family is not just the nitty-gritty or what we call the nuclear family. So we had a lot of people raising us, my mother's siblings, my father's siblings. We had the benefit of having them in our lives, and I'm grateful for that because I think that for me they gave me an inheritance I would not have gotten if we had done just a nuclear family. We had a lot of people raising us up, and so my parents had a lot of support. While they were supporting them, there was a period where my parents even left the country, and my father had gone over to do his master's, I think a second master's at the time, and my mother followed him, and so the responsibility of caring for us was left to their siblings for a period of time. So I'm grateful for what seemed like a burden, or seems like a burden for some people, was a heritage for us, and for me it defined me, it defined who I was. It gave me a personality. It refined my personality. You know, around your parents. It's a blessing in this case. You know, around your parents, you can tend to have a bit of change or a bit of things that don't work out. But around people who care for discipline and also care about you as a person, I think for me it gave me an early shaping of both my Christian life, which was very foundational for me as a person, but it also propelled me into aspects and places I never thought I could get to.
Nice, Diana. I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is your jab or your lugisu? Let's start with the jab.
1 over 10. You get to 0 over 10.
How can you?
Negative 1 over 10.
Can you say how are you in Jap?
Of course.
How do you say it?
Itienedi.
Oh, that's good at least.
No, we can. I think that with Jap you get away with the pleasantries.
Yes.
Of course, you learn the abuses first. You get away with the pleasantries. You get away with asking for different things. Like everyone learns the language and learns the bad things first.
Yes.
So those ones don't go away from you. But my father, I think, made an effort when we were in primary school. He made an effort to try and give us lessons. Because
the Jap language.
Because the home was full of multicultural things happening at the time, and of course it's the time when parents were teaching children to go to school and speak English. You're surrounded by propaganda, you're surrounded by many things, but it was important that he tried his best to teach us the language, and so he used to give us what do they call them, tests every Saturday.
Did you pass any?
I did. It was, you had to pass because you got money with it. You had to pass. So from that we picked up a few bits and bits about.
Which ones do you remember?
All of them, like you can greet, how you welcome people, what is going on, things such as are you feeling better? We picked up all those things.
Lovely.
And it's things that you don't drop off.
Yes.
And I think that I like when you discover that your culture sometimes is your identity.
It is your identity, not sometimes.
It defines. Some people tend to run away from culture. That's the problem with westernization. We tend to run away from these things that we think are backward.
Yes.
But for me, it's an indictment on my parents and an indictment on many people. I will never advocate for people who can't speak the language.
Yeah.
I think that for it defines us as a nationality, it defines us as a country.
It sets you apart.
It does.
Yes,
it does. So it's something that I will always advocate for. I will always advocate. You must speak your language. I tell parents, it is not a good thing, or don't beat yourself in the chest with so much pride because your child just holds a name with a language that they cannot speak.
That's why we're here. We will not be ashamed to celebrate our own. Yes, so Dana, we know a little bit about you right now. We want to get to know you further. As you were growing up, you said you grew up in a family that was full of people different. What did you pick up? What stood out for you while you were growing up? One of your fondest memories as you were growing up in that household of Japadola and Bagis. We want to know all of that.
Oh my gosh. I have very many memories, but I can think of my earliest memory. My earliest memory was my father carrying me on his back in the morning early going to church. Our church has always been is All Saints Cathedral. Our local church has always been All Saints Cathedral. And so from Mwanda Road to All Saints Cathedral, it's a bit of a distance.
Not close.
No, it's a bit of a distance.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a distance. But I remember very early morning. I remember because I used to love the color of light. And so I remember waking up and I was on his shoulders and I remember seeing light.
How old were you?
Yeah, I don't know. I may have been 3 or something like that. And being 3 because it was carrying me. So for me, that said something about my parents, is that they were keen on making sure that there was a firm Christian foundation which we grew up in. That's my earliest memory. My mother recently was telling me, I was watching my father carrying my niece on his back and I was quite shocked.
You're like, you still do that, Daddy?
No, actually, that's not the father I remember, which is funny. And so my mother said, he used to do that for you. And I said, you lie. It can't be true. Because I don't have a recollection of that. I have a recollection of when he was being tough and a disciplinarian and all those things, but I don't have a recollection of that. But that for me is one of my first fond memories of growing up, that aspect of being carried to church. I think the others are really with my siblings making noise and growing up in a house, me getting disciplined because I wanted to tell everyone secrets. I never could get
Have you come across like you were the disciplinarian?
Maybe I think the thing that irritates you the most in life is the thing that you sort of turn to get rid of. I love discipline. I still do. Everyone that is around me knows that I lay down the law. I really do. I feel sorry for many people who come around because I lay down the law. But it's the people who lay down the law also more likely to break it. because you know the way around, you know the way around.
Yeah.
And so I was also a child that pushed boundaries.
At some point.
I pushed boundaries. Still do. I even think now I still do push boundaries. I just pushed boundaries.
Okay, Diana. Talk to us about your school. Where did you go to school? Primary, secondary, until you reached the university. Were you always the principled one, even in primary school?
That's interesting. My reports in primary school always had she's talkative. She's talkative. I used to talk in class. I don't understand what's wrong with the teachers. But I went to Kitante Primary School. I went to Kololo Nursery. It doesn't exist anymore. I missed those baskets. And then I went to...
What baskets?
You know the baskets we used to carry? There were baskets.
On your back?
No, there were baskets. There were, it was a long thing and then it had a
cover.
Yeah.
They used to call them caseros in Uganda.
I don't remember.
I remember them.
Those are baskets used to carry.
There was a string on it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I want one. I really want one. And
they put for you a banana in it.
I don't know what they put. I just like the basket. There was an air of class when you went to school with a basket.
No, but it wasn't that classy.
No, but there was in Kololo Nursery because I think this is the 80s. And so you're coming out from a time of war and it's turbulent. So people don't have anything. You had shoes, and we had shoes other people didn't have. So imagine people came to school just as they were. We came with baskets. Do you imagine?
With nothing in it.
There was something.
That must have been a banana or something.
There was something, but I never liked eating food. I never liked eating food. I never understood why we needed to eat food. So when I got to nursery, I went to Kitete Primary School. I remember my first memory of Kitete Primary School is in P1. So when they would drop children to school, they dropped, the parents dropped children and they were waving. I didn't really understand why they were waving. For me, I understood, you're here to study. At the proper time, they'll pick you up. I don't remember what happened exactly, but I think I told kids to pipe down and sit down and do something. And I probably may have locked the door or something.
You must have been 6 years or so.
I was 6.
And you're already being a leader.
I got punished that day. It was one of the first days I was in school because I just didn't understand why everyone was waiting. Why are you waiting? I did something. I don't know. I did something to one of the children because I didn't understand why they were crying. They had dropped you. It's school. Get it done. Get over and done. Go back home. It's normal. And so I did something. I remember getting punished. I think I locked a teacher out or something. I don't remember. I remember I was told to stand in a dustbin. That was my punishment. I think my teachers should be sued.
That is P1.
Emotional damage, yeah. They should be sued. I was told standing in a
Now that you're a lawyer.
I don't remember who my P1 teachers were. I was told standing in a dustbin. I remember that was among the first day. And I needed to I think that's the day I realized that the law I set at home should not be the law I set everywhere else.
No, but you see, you are trying to calm your classmates, only that the way you are doing it, maybe.
Yeah. It's just very interesting. So I went to Kitete Primary School for 7 years before it turned into UPE, and it was a fun time. It was a fun time. It was a lot of there was a bit of leadership development. I think that my teacher saw in P5 something in me I didn't see in myself. So when they asked me to become a prefect, that day I think I'd just thrown someone down and she was bleeding. In my defense, I was a child. But it was a mistake. We were playing and I think I got a bit rough. I grew up with boys, so I never played a girl.
Which class were you by that time?
P5. I grew up with boys, and so I thought that we played the same way the boys treated the girls, we treated them the same way. So I didn't understand that why girls felt that they needed to be a bit more gentle. So,
are you older siblings, boys?
Yes.
Oh, that explains.
No, I was surrounded by boys. The neighborhood was surrounded by boys. People who stayed in the boys' quarter were boys. I was just surrounded by boys. So we were climbing trees, going through tunnels, playing duel, climbing down from the house. It's upstairs, down all the way down, building castles. I never understood I never played girls' games.
So you didn't play kwepena?
No, we did football, and I was always the keeper with the other person, and then we were doing basketball, in my defense, my sister came quite late, 6 years much later than the rest of us. So by the time she starts P1, I'm in P7. So there's sort of a bit of age difference, and because of that, there were no girls. I think the first time I played a girls' game and I didn't been skipping a rope or something, I was in P7.
Way later?
Yeah, I was in P7. So primary, one of my teachers asked me to be a prefect. I had no idea what.
There were no campaigns at that time in school?
So, no, I think they were rigged campaigns. They were always rigged. You knew, teacher told you, you knew what was going to happen. you went in front of school, said something, and then they told you were prefect. I don't really remember. It was always the process was rigged. They just saw something new and picked you. I don't remember it so much. I remember I was a prefect in P6 and then going on to P7 because I was really shy. I really was shy. I was really shy. I had such a low self-esteem. I didn't see much in myself.
Why do you think was a problem?
Identity. When you grow up as a girl among boys, you tend to do everything that they do, but you're never who you are because you haven't had time to figure out who you are. It was hard for me to understand that there are differences between boys and girls. There's strength difference, there's reasoning difference, you develop at different levels and different times. And so my personality was also very different from my siblings around them. I was forceful, they were not quite forceful. And so I had an identity crisis at that time.
And it affected you?
It did. And so because of that, I didn't see myself. I saw myself and weighed myself according to people's limitations. So the limitations my parents put, I obeyed them. The limitations the boys put, I obeyed them. And because of those limitations, I never dreamed of anything. Leadership to me was something that you had to be tough and you had to be bad and nobody liked you. And I was trying to be liked. I was really trying to be like anybody just like me.
Yes.
Why was I my parents' favorite?
Yes.
It's not fair.
Yes.
So it was things like that, and I had such a low self-esteem at the time. And so even going into secondary, I struggled with it.
So how were you prefect when you were this shy?
Because the teacher said, so he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. So out of, inside I had a war and I rebelled. Outside I did what I was supposed to do. I did, if they said something, I did it. It just seemed right. If someone says something, do it. If the leadership says something, do it. In my small childish manner, I understood the price of leadership and what it cost, and I always valued leadership. So primary, went to Gaza High School. Gaza High School for 4 years. It was an interesting time because for me, while I'd given.
By the time you joined Gaza, you were an excellent student.
I joined Gaza. I think that's the best we can say. I joined it. Yes. I was stubborn. I really was. I was very stubborn. But not in the worrying sense, but in the way children ordinarily would be a tough child to bear with. And so Gaza High School, went into it for 4 years. It reaffirmed my faith. I had given my life to Christ in P4. And so because of the
So who guided you? At about 9 years.
My aunties. So I told you my mother's siblings stayed with us. And my mother's siblings, the ladies and the gentlemen, but the ladies had, at that time, salvation had become such a big thing in the country. And so you had a number of visiting preachers. You had there was a new wave of Pentecostalism happening in Uganda, and so these BWMP churches were budding. My parents were away, as we said, for that period. I think that's the year they come back. They were away. So my aunties did not take us to Olsen's as my parents had done, so they took us to these churches as they were beginning. And I remember one of these days there was preaching, I think it was, I don't remember the church. I remember the people, but I don't remember the church. But I remember it was what we call now open house. It was there.
Just next to Watoto.
It was there. There was a church whose name I can't quite pull up now. But it was a church, and then there was somebody preaching, and then my aunties just said, I think they did an altar call, and my auntie said, go up and get a Bible. So we went up, got a Bible. I think we said certain words.
That you don't remember?
I have no the slightest idea. On the way home, they wanted to congratulate us what had happened. I had no idea what had happened. So they offered to buy us sweets, so I put my Bible on top of the shop kiosk, received my sweets, went happy with my sweets. When I got home, I had no idea where the Bible was. I can only hope that shopkeeper gave their life to Christ, but I had no idea. So that was the beginning story for me. My auntie said, saying, this is what's expected of you, the do's and don'ts. So my understanding,
you're very thankful to your aunties.
I am. In their absence, of course, they later on passed.
So did they do that for all your siblings and
they
even
did.
For your parents?
No, my parents were not around.
Okay.
My parents were not around at the time. So my parents' salvation comes much later. Yeah. So and then I got into Gaza, and it reaffirmed my faith journey. And my faith journey, but it also brought out my struggles. My struggles with I was not enough. My struggles with I wasn't brilliant enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I didn't come from a good enough family, everything wasn't enough. I think that for me was heightened in that atmosphere because finally you're surrounded by brilliant people, by royal people, by royalty, by people who have a purpose and a sense in life, by spirituality, and for every measurement I fell short. I really fell short.
You felt.
And I said to myself, what is this I have
And being a teenager as well.
Yes, and then I'd never been around girls my whole life.
Oh, yes, yes.
And for the first time in my life, I was surrounded by a group of women, and they were crying, and I didn't understand why. I really didn't understand why. So, because you've gone around boys and you know to shelve those emotions, you also don't express.
You know how males always shelve their emotions.
And so you've been brought up in that.
Yes.
I remember when I was growing up, we used to fight. Then my brothers would fight. It was a day. It was so bad that we constantly fought daily. I remember I hit my brother. Should I even say this on TV? With a mingling stick, and he got swollen. And so I ran away.
Didn't they always beat you, or you were always the stronger one?
No, of course the boys beat you when they chose to. But it was a fight, and we'd fight with anything inside. So whether it was a hammer, mingling stick. I remember that day when my mother came home. She said, so they always reported what had happened, and then they would discipline us as was expected. And so she comes home when child is seated outside the gate, right?
The one who was beaten by you?
No, me who was run away from the trouble. Said outside the gate ready to welcome them. Haven't been in, haven't eaten, haven't done anything. I'm just out for my life. I was outside the gate. The one who is in has a swollen head from the beating. And then my aunties come to make us, as court would do, come to make us lawyers. This is what happened, back and forth. And my mother just said, I remember I think she was so tired. She just said, why? She has grown up among boys. That's the way it will always be. So I followed her inside. My understanding of that statement was, I'm allowed to do what the boys do.
To defend yourself.
I started those fights. So going to a girls' school,
it was all different.
It's so different. No one was fighting. We always said disputes by fights. No one was fighting. It was a rule. I didn't know how to settle a dispute without a fight.
I
didn't know how to settle a dispute without a fight. It was so funny. I remember being enraged at some time, and I wanted to carry up someone. And I said, I'm going to be expelled. Then I'll be killed at home.
Yes.
Let me just calm down. And so it brought out both the best and the worst in me.
Because it felt like you were not being heard. You're not expressing yourself the way you used to.
So that's the thing about Gaza. It brought out both the best and the worst in me. And it helped me sort of find my boundaries, define myself, find my values. And so I threw myself at God. Because it seemed the only sure thing in life. And then from my left Gaza and went to Horizon Campus, St. Lawrence. And we had a short time there because our vacation in Espo was about 6 months. And so we started when people were having their second terms when we were starting about that time. And so I went into there. That brought out, that time was interesting because while I felt that I had been among people and lost who I was, here without the restriction of church and all these things.
Because Horizon was a bit lenient.
Yeah.
Compared to Gaza.
And so without that restriction, I finally found who I was. And then I started to see people admire me and I didn't understand why. Because I hadn't done anything that would warrant that admiration. I'd seen it a bit in Gaza, but I hadn't understood it. I just thought people were bored. When girls are together, they just become bored and then that's it. Yeah. So when I saw it in Horizon Campus, I remember, I thought to myself, without trying, you'd rise to the top. Suddenly you were the popular one, you do that. Now I wasn't used to being a popular one. I wasn't used to. And popular for the most random things. And so because of the tomboy, at the time I continued my tomboy ways. I never understood what it meant to be a girl. But it defined for me fundamentally who I was. Without hiding behind Christianity, without hiding behind a certain expectation that I had to be an academic giant, without hiding behind family, I suddenly discovered who I was.
And what was that?
First of all, I was shed away from leadership. Still, I remember they asked me to be a prefect and I said, no. I don't know, I ran for leadership for the longest time.
And it comes calling you.
It does. It comes calling me and I always run. But I discovered that I was okay. I was enough. I was brilliant. I was saved because I wanted to be saved and not because somebody said it to me. I could be anything I wanted to be. And suddenly, what seemed like a loss of esteem shifted. Because I started to see people so valuing me. Maybe that value was there. You know, there were bits and pieces in primary. Yeah, there were bits and pieces in primary and but now this one was like...
reaffirmed.
I didn't do anything to ask for it. So I said, okay, maybe there is value here. And I went into law school, my career.
So let me ask, had you always looked at yourself as a lawyer? Is it something that you thought you wanted to do? Or like I said, at some point you wanted to be a teacher, engineer? What was it? Has it always been law?
It's funny. In primary, when they asked people the question, what do you want to be? I said, what everybody said, doctor, pilot. I'd wait for someone to say something and I'd say it because I didn't understand what they wanted me to be. They said doctor, I said doctor. But if you asked me when I was alone, I'd tell you I want to be the vice president of the country, or I want to be the first lady, or I want to be, I don't know if I ever said president, first lady, or I wanted to be. It's funny, I always shifted in president, vice president, something. I always said that. When I got to S2, I think I read a Sidney Sheldon. I think it was a Sidney Sheldon. It was one of those novels. It was a dispute in court, and it was a female lawyer on the other side, and she had an uphill task to prove that it was a paternity dispute, and she had a task to prove that the plaintiff was actually the father of the child. Now, I don't think there was DNA in those days, at least it was not something that was popular. And so she used a certain trick to show similar mannerisms between the child and the father, and then it was decided that he was the father. Made for good reading, fancy reading.
For an S2 student.
But I said to myself, I'm going to be a lawyer. I am going to be a lawyer. I think
you were seeing yourself in this character.
I particularly did. I did. Another thing I like to do, I like to read, what are they called? What are those books called? I like to read books a lot. Yeah. So that was one of the things. And so I decided I'm going to be a lawyer. That was my decision. And then I got into S5 and someone came, one of the journalists who's now a lawyer, came and spoke about development studies and developing the country. I said, I think the Lord is calling me there. I want to be development studies. But I failed in law. And I got admitted for law eventually. And I did law school for 4 years. Even then, I had no idea what kind of law I wanted to do. I remember first year I thought I would know, it never happened. Second year, third year, fourth year. So maybe LDC will come to me. Went to LDC after, and it still never came to me. But since people who had gone ahead of me had run into human rights, I said, I think that's the natural course of things, into human rights, which is what I tried to do. I think I went for firm first, and then I went into an NGO for the longest part of my career before I shifted into CSO, and then back to farm, and then farm again.
That seems to me like purpose.
In hindsight, yes. In hindsight, yes. Because I thought it was always zigzag. It didn't make sense. I didn't know what I was going to do with any of it. I just knew wherever I was at the time, I was going to do it the best way I know how. And so whether it was the law firm, or it was the NGO, or it was the CSO, or it was a firm under business development, and then another firm again, I think I just told myself, in this season, this is what I know to do, and I will do it to the best of my ability. But then I had been leading in various aspects at church. I finally embraced leadership. I embraced it, and perhaps Essex Vac.
Yes. After you had discovered who you are.
I embraced it in Essex vacation, but I embraced it in the spiritual level at church. So I allowed to be a leader in church. The good thing,
which is a good foundation.
Yeah, but the good thing about it is you could just say God said. No one questioned when God said. God said. That was it. No one questioned.
So Dana, God said. You sailed through school from Gaza to school, Horizon Campus, university, law, LDC. It sounds like you're thriving in everything that you're doing. I want us to go for a short break. and then you come back and tell us your experience after school, after LDC, your work, career. So let us first go for a break, then we come back. Atie kanki Diana Angwech and tie Vice President ma Uganda Law Society in metika na waku diko in Latin ma aki tororo wona aki tororo miena aki bugis watika winyu loka kany pira tekni lotin wama pena pegingeyo letni olo waberki kerme winyu story gi kari bena na watie kalok kilep mona mer kwa ngwache to yue manok kada kadu pamete kiyupeni.